Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe show, and we are live for our CSM 16 coverage, this time with Rixx Javix. So happy to have you here. So excited about your candidacy, but we'll get to all of that in just a second. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm on the Ashtarothi show, and I'm talking about the CSM, so how much better can my life be, really? So
This
it's
is
a dream come true.
I feel like this right here may be considered the culmination of a decade's worth of work, if you looked at it from certain slices.
Easily.
But yeah.
Easily.
So normally, let's first of all set down the rules. Just like everybody else, Rixx will be given the 1 hour of showtime as an interview, 50 minutes for me to ask him questions or challenge him however I feel fit. And then he will be given 10 minutes in order to make sure that he gets any points across that he wishes to. And then Bob's your uncle. We're out of here. It goes on YouTube and everybody can check it out, make your informed decisions. Normally, I point out that I look at their forum post, and that is where I've collected most of my information about them, and any other information I know about them, I will fully disclose. And at this point, I pretty much have to say that almost everything I know about Rixx Javix comes from my information outside of his forum post. By contrast, I must confess, I've only kind of mildly skimmed it in contrast.
Right. That's fair.
But yeah, we'll get to all that in a bit. But first of all, just for those people who may not know who you are, where do you stand as a candidate? What is your primary platform?
My primary platform is going to be low sec faction warfare, for sure. Is definitely that. That's where I live in game. I'm the CEO of Stay Frosty and the Alliance Executor of a Band Apart Alliance. We make our living and our lives in low sec, and I've been a -10 pirate every single day for the last 10 years or so. A little over 10 years now. And so if there's one part of space that I know well, it's that. I mean, I did spend 3 years of my career in nullsec. That's where I started. I've been in wormholes. I was just in a wormhole fight last week. I was just in Cloud Ring and Delve and down that way in nullsec last week. As a matter of fact, killing Entosa ships.
The fact that you even keep track of like all of the different places in nullsec that you go to is like me. It's just like, I don't know. I yeeted to nullsec. It could have been anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you why it's funny, because whenever we filament, we always end up in Delve. So that's why fair. I remember.
That's fair.
No matter how many times we do it.
Is Caroline Star far away or close? That's the only thing I really know.
Yeah, right. And the Cloud Ring is very, very identifiable.
That's fair.
Yeah, so I get around in space. It's not like I just know low sec and that's it. But I have a lot of experience with doing lots of things around. So low sec is definitely faction warfare. Low sec, that's definitely my priority, and the basis of whatever advocacy that I will be doing on the CSM with CCP is going to be low sec focused for sure.
Right.
I like to think that my primary gift is that I can encompass the entirety of the game, not every single detail, of course, but that one of the things that I've managed over the years when I do talk to CCP and when I talk to Mastermind and some of the people who are actually putting things together is not just, hey, this needs to change. It's also about, well, this needs to change, but how does that affect? Because this is the way CCP thinks about the game. They don't think about low sec primarily just as an entity. It's an entity that enhances and impacts all the other regions around it. And so any change you make to wormhole space affects low sec, affects high sec, affects null sec. Any change you make in any of those spaces affects all of them together. So,
right, we're focusing on individual houses or rooms, and they're looking at the entire house, or they're they're looking at hallways. We're looking at hallways and rooms, and they're looking at the entire house.
Right.
So we're like,
right.
They need to they understand it on a different level often than a person that is just experiencing the content, and that's true about all game development. Okay, so but you are a low sec pirate claiming to represent faction warfare. Faction warfare is my baby. If you didn't know that, then you shouldn't represent faction warfare.
I did.
So why are you the faction warfare representative?
Well, we've had this conversation before, actually, but yeah, it's the lifeblood, it's the heartbeat of LoSec. It really is. I remember LoSec before faction warfare, and I'm sure you do too. A lot of us uh, bitter vets who have been playing for over a decade remember what LoSec was like before faction warfare. Faction warfare, in my opinion, is the heartbeat. I interact with it every single day. It's a vital part of what I do and what my corporation does and what my alliance does. And not only do we interact with and engage faction warfare, but I mean we have lots of alts, lots of characters who come from faction warfare and also leave us and go to faction warfare. It's an osmosis, if you want to say, between the two parties. We can't exist without each other, in my opinion. LoSec is a much more vital and engaging place with a vital and engaged faction warfare component, not just pirates or mercenaries or scammers or bounty hunters or whatever else might be out there. So I like it when faction warfare is engaged and when there's a lot of players doing a lot of things around us. I'd like to see more opportunities for non-faction warfare players to be engaged as well. And I think there's some things you could do with that. But yeah, it's I don't know how else to put it. I think it's the heartbeat of LoSec, and I think LoSec dies without it.
I agree with you. So I will ask kind of where your position is on how to quote unquote fix faction warfare, but I want to preface that by saying that, like, by reminding everybody that the CSM doesn't dictate to CCP how faction warfare gets fixed. So it isn't like, if you like Rixx's solution, vote for Rixx. But it's more like CCP is potentially going to discuss with the CSM what plans that they do have. And so knowing how Rixx feels about faction warfare will help know as a voter whether or not he will properly represent our interests in front of them. So, with all that being said, I've said your caveats and prefaces for you. Uh,
Thank you.
how would you fix faction warfare?
Well, I think it's a complex issue, and I think that also one more caveat, if I could, before I get started, is that I'm not a former CSM member. There's been some confusion about that. I heard it said that I ran a long time ago, or I've been on the CSM before. This is the very first time I've ever run for CSM. And one of the things that also I'm not privy to are the data points and information that CCP would be sharing with CSM. And that obviously impacts the decision making that you're doing. I mean, there's a lot of usage data and other types of data that they have that they don't share with the player base. So that would obviously impact some of the decisions that are made. I think in increasing engagement, increasing resources, and bringing something unique to the experience of LoSec is where it's at. And so that applies to both faction warfare and to piracy, excuse me. And I think that faction warfare is a foundation that needed to be iterated on, over the years and has been abandoned. I think that there's a lot we could do to increase the amount of engagement that faction warfare players are having, and not just deplexing, and not just running sites, and not just bouncing back and forth from one war to the next, and also not skipping over from Glinty to Mimitar to Amar, and just joining up, whatever faction happens to be very busy or very getting a lot of LP points. I think we could increase the amount of engagement across the board, and honestly through some simple changes, some simple changes like increasing rat aggro, so that would get rid of deplexing as a empty hole plexing, putting those deplexers on borderline systems, managing some of the Citadel problems that we've had. I think somebody was on earlier that I listened to one of the interviews, and they were talking about the Citadel proliferation and how
I,
cores have helped. And I don't
I,
think that's
I
actually
actually want to
happened.
jump in and grab on to
Yeah, go ahead.
something that you just said.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you said
go ahead.
increase ratting aggro. And this is actually an interesting thought, because during the original, the last time that faction warfare was significantly revamped, the plexes were changed from
Right,
being a PvE site to a PvP site. They used to be full of
right,
rats, and the button was significantly far
right,
away from
right,
the original entry point. So you didn't actually get
right,
ganked. You had to dodge or kill the rats in order to hold the site. This has
Right.
changed the effect, so now it's a PvP site. However, at the time, there was this really, really strong sense of that any PVE would somehow taint the PvP engagement, right? That like if a rat spawned and turned the tide of the fight, that somehow invalidated the sanctity of the PvP that was being done within faction warfare. And I remember that argument being used, and one of the reasons why the rat itself is basically just a DPS check without much of an actual threat to it itself. But it sounds to me like you're actually saying that we've kind of come a long ways, and maybe we've, overall, we've learned a lot from the new AI. We've learned a lot from invasions, and maybe having rats that behave a little bit more like people, or at least are a threat in and of themselves, is okay. And having that show up in the middle of a PvP fight may not be bad, but exciting. Is that accurate?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we have 6-year-old rats sitting in plexus basically. What we have now in the game is and you were just talking about that in the update beforehand about how NPC dreads are attacking, and we have mining fleets showing up in asteroid fields. And why can't we have AI rats in the plexus as well? With a purpose, with some lore behind them. Much more engaging sort of environment, and when I say engaging, I don't just mean two people pew pewing each other in the face. There's a lot of ways to build engagement through lore, through the story, through the activities of the NPCs around those. CCP's been touting this AI NPC thing for at least 2-3 years now. So, and they've made some mistakes with attacking citadels and nullsec and other things, but I think generally speaking, they're running really well. So I would be excited to have intelligent AI driven NPCs engaged in faction warfare. I think it would be awesome for you and for me, for pirates and for faction warfare pilots.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
all.
that risk reward, the risk isn't as high as it should be, and neither is the reward side. The reward side needs to be reevaluated as well.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to get your impression on that because I mostly wanted to know whether or not you had a position on any of the major issues that plague faction warfare, or if, as a pirate, what I find is that when, especially a PvPer, wishes to represent a group that they are adjacent to,
Right.
it isn't always in their best interest, or it's more how to design the thing to make that community behave in a way that is more advantageous for your community. So that's why I
Right.
wanted to be able to pick that apart. It really does
No,
sound
let me
like.
let me tell you, generally speaking, what my philosophy about game design is. I don't really inherently I don't care what the rules are, because when the rules change, then I have to change. I don't think we're going to get to a point where the rule set would eliminate piracy in low sec. I would hope not.
That doesn't.
If it ever did, I would find something else to do, I guess. But I I think that what we get hung up on as players is that this rules change. This ruined my play style, and I don't know that that's necessarily ever really been true. I've been playing for 13 years. You've been playing for a long time. I can't name a play style out here in the real world. There aren't typesetters anymore because we have computers. There aren't, a lot of jobs get eliminated because of robots and other things. But I haven't really noticed a lot of play styles being eliminated in 13 years. So I think what we have to do is keep things in perspective, understand how it's going to affect everyone, and your game getting better means my game is getting better. My game getting better might mean your game might get better. So I would like to see all of ours. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but I think we're all in the boat where Eva's been around almost 18 years now. Next week, and I'd like to see it go on for another 18. I want more players, more engagement, more interest. And last week, I'll give you a perfect example. Last week, I was on another show, and this came up where people were complaining about the skill point injecting and people flying ships they shouldn't fly, and some of these young players. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a 6-month-old player in an Avatar or a Titan. I think it was an Avatar. Anyway, and how that might be bad for Eve. And on the other hand, I personally I think it's great for Eve because I think that means more players are playing, and people are always going to do things that they shouldn't be doing, and that makes it very exciting. More players mean better engagement for everybody. I'm sorry, I probably got off track there.
It's fine. Never underestimate people's ability to make a bad decision is something I've learned.
Right, exactly. Yep, yep.
Just get people out there. They'll make mistakes. Don't worry, and then you can catch them. All right,
That's that's part of the joy of Eve, isn't it? Getting out and finding out what doesn't work and screwing up, and then learning and moving on. That's what we
more
want.
importantly, finding out what does work. Finding out what things everybody's scared of, but actually is a perfectly
Right,
open opportunity
right.
for you. So I do want to dig a little bit more into these mechanics and stuff like that. But obviously, you have a lot of your positions on your blog, Evoganda, and on your forum post. So people can check
Right.
out the specifics of all of those kind of details. I actually want to ask you a little bit more of a personal question because you
All right.
have a long history with CCP. You've done actual professional business work with them. You've
Yes.
danced close enough to working for CCP that I'm pretty sure you've picked out your name, and you've been part of this community
Well,
for
no.
long enough that everyone assumed that you've already been on the CSM.
Right.
What about now has made it feel valuable for Rixx Javix himself to decide to take on the duties and responsibilities of being on the CSM, given how much extra work it is, and given the fact
That's
that you are a known figure?
right. Right. Well, I mean, I think about it every year. Every year it comes up, and I look over at my wife and I say, CSM elections are coming up, and we talk about it. We've had this debate many, many times. I've come close a few times, um, professionally, and I think it's partly due to the lockdown and COVID. I've been, excuse me, I've been working from home for my wife says 12, 13 months. So 13 months now. And and she's working from home. Our children are 27, 18, 17, and 16. So they're grown now. They're able to take care of themselves. They're pretty independent. So a lot of things have changed in our personal lives and in our professional lives that make it a possibility. There was a time 2 years ago when I was traveling a lot for business and I wasn't playing Eve as much, and so that was a difficult time. That's not true now. So now's a great time to do it. Also, I think that part of what you said is part of the reason why I think I'm rather unique as far as candidates go. I do have a long history that stretches back to 2013. I've worked with CCP. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing one of the shirts I designed tonight. I've worked with them. I've advocated for different things. I've put different projects in place. I'm currently working on the Eve merchandise store. Just I've been a fan site and an Eve partner for 12 years now. Yeah, wow,
It,
12 years. I've been writing. Yeah,
it's worth noting. I just looked over and I just noticed something. All three
what's that?
logos that are currently on the screen were made, or at least you helped me
From my
make
race.
all
Right,
three of these
right,
logos.
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, over 1,400 Alliance logos so far. At last count, I think we're probably close to 1,450. But yeah, so I mean, honestly, there is not an entity in Eve that I probably haven't done some work for. Even like the Meta Show, I did the logo for the Meta Show recently, and that's a Goon podcast or a Twitch stream. Almost all the major podcasts or Twitch streams or things I've worked with or designed their logo. So I've touched a little bit of everything. Like I said earlier, I know it's hard to believe, and some people won't believe it, but I'm a rather unique person. I travel around. I talk to just about everyone in the game from one point or another, and not in game necessarily, but in the community wise.
Yeah.
So that's rather unique, and I have a perspective of successfully and not successfully. I mean, I do have 4 cease and desist letters in that filing cabinet behind me from CCP, so it doesn't always work. Um, but successfully working on projects with them, and also advocating for changes in space that actually went through. Having long uh, talks over coffee and over drinks with certain devs and getting things done. We did we did work on getting workhorse devs banned from inside of Plexes. We did do the venture thing. We did introduce a brand new ship into the game called the Mollusk Navy issue
Yeah,
to deal with workhorse devs. So I mean, and we did get frills back on the Vagabond, even though that's kind of a joke one.
you
But we
say
did do
that,
that,
but I
and
swear to God, every single time I fly my Vagabond, there's somebody that's like, "Oh,
I think
dude,
that
those frills look so cool," or those things on the side look so cool, and I get to be
yeah,
like, you know what? They got taken away until Rixx did the "Thuck You Frill Me" campaign.
yeah, yep, yep, and one other thing about that too, and I know it's a funny story about what really happened, but the lesson, and this is also important too for the legacy of Eve and why it goes on, why player advocacy is so important, is that the lesson, much like in Karna or the captain's quarters or some of the other mistakes that were made in the past, the lesson that CCP learned from that was that the legacy does matter. When you're remaking a ship, or when you're reskinning it, or when you're adding something new to the game, it's important to keep the legacy of the game alive, and not totally change something for no reason, right? Just because
You
it might look better.
you say that, but they took the spikes off my curse and didn't give them back. So and
I know,
there's no
right? Yeah,
campaign for
yeah.
that. No Conid.
No, nobody loves
No
nobody
weird
loves the
sexual
curse.
reference to Conid. Okay, well, whatever.
Right.
Um, no, but
If they
I think
change
it
the
really
Falcon,
goes.
nobody's going to care.
So when I ran for CSM, one of the things that was asked of me was like, Ash, you already have communication with developers. Like, if you need to get your point
Right.
across, you can. Aren't you taking up the spot from somebody else who may need that? And while I don't know necessarily how valid that is as an argument, I do actually kind of turn it to you, especially right now. There's a lot of really good candidates running this year, and not a lot of slots. So why not pick one of the candidates and kingmake like you have before? Why do you feel that you should be one? Why do you feel that
No, it's
you what do you get out of being on the CSM that you don't already have?
so and that is a valid question. It's a very good one, actually. And I have, every year I do a ballot and I promote it on the blog, and I've done that every year. So I will do it again this year. I feel like for the last 13 years I've had a soapbox, in a park, and I've been able to stand on that soapbox and yell and scream and talk to people. And I have worked with them, that's for sure. I think that it's time for a deeper dive. I want to know what it's like to be on the CSM. I am tired. Honestly, here we go. So I'm going to say it. I'm tired of the excuses, and I'm tired of faction warfare not being addressed. Every year, I support. Here, I'll tell you. I talk to people who are running for CSM almost every year, and I don't have a public channel to do it. I DM them. We talk about on Discord, or we have a chat on comms. And the first question I ask is, what are you going to do for low second faction warfare? And the answer is always the same. We're going to change faction warfare. We're going to get it iterated on, and it doesn't happen. And honestly, I'm a little tired of those excuses. I want to go and see what the what's the roadblock here. Why are we not getting it? It's been a long time, and other aspects of the game have been addressed. Nullsec gets their thing, and Highsec's getting theirs, and we're all getting changes, no doubt. But why hasn't that happened? And I think it's a ridiculous and inexcusable um, set of circumstances, and I want to be there to find out why.
So Icon 911 in chat does bring up not addressing faction warfare. This will not age well when the new quadrant comes out. Like just today, we discovered that the next
Right,
quadrant is going to be
right,
focused on the foundations, right? So the different four empires,
right,
which
right,
could very well either include faction warfare revamp, or that could be the next quadrant. That, however,
right.
brings me to a point that I wanted to bring up earlier, which is that there actually has been a lot of faction warfare improvements over the last 2 years, but they've been
Sure. Oh, of
little
course, absolutely. Yeah.
piecemeal and here and there
Dribbles.
and never advertised. And the problem isn't the mechanics of faction warfare. The problem with faction warfare is the fact that faction
No.
warfare only works if both sides have an player built entity that is interested in winning the war zone. If you do not have that, you do not have
Right.
faction warfare. If you do have that, then there will be always someone there to wreck the farmer's day, to push the thing that cares more
Right.
than everyone else, and that will make sure that galvanize things. The Caldari have not had a person who has cared, or a group that has cared about warzone control for many years for a lot of reasons. But that's a
Sadly.
lot of what's missing there. The Amar and Mimitar, you've seen that they have had groups that really do care, and thus that is the faction warfare that has remained alive in the modern day. And so that's a very valuable
Right.
lesson. And the problem here
Very
is
good
actually,
perspective in it.
thank you. But the point that I'm trying to get to here is that this means that what faction warfare really is missing is marketing. So having a marketing guy who also knows faction warfare is one of the reasons why I have been paying attention to Rixx Javix the moment he said that he wanted to be a candidate. Because more than anything else, I think that we could use a CSM person there able to see things behind actually get some value out of the NDA, so that way he can help sculpt how to shape this for the player base, in a way. You wouldn't want somebody like me because, like, what am I going to do? You're not going to discuss the lore with the CSM. That's not the point. But the way that these things roll out, understanding how the player base is interacting with these different entities, how different faction warfare groups care or don't care about their various factions and why, that is something that Rixx can help out with, along with his marketing
Yes.
skills. And that's what I really think is your
Yeah. The,
strength.
when you read the CSM minutes, you very seldom ever see a very hefty marketing chapter. I think that'll change because it's funny because you say that because those are some of the first people that I really want to speak to when I get there or when I have the opportunity to, and hopefully, I mean, we don't know how this year is going to go, but hopefully we get a chance to do some things in person too because it's very difficult to advocate over a live stream. It's
That's
very
true.
difficult to advocate over Discord. What the real value for me is all those things are very valuable. Don't get me wrong, but the real value for me is all the things that happen on the sidelines, right? The dinners, the drinks, the late night debates, the hallway meetings, the me breaking into Homar's office
Oh, hey!
when
Do you
I
get? Do you got a
when,
second? Do you got a second, real
yeah,
quick?
sure,
No, no. I'm just
yeah,
saying, like, that's what happens, right? Like, it's not the meetings. It's the
right,
hey! Hold up. Do you got a second? I had an idea to pass by you. Like, those are the
yeah.
that's
Hey,
the
Zorg,
goal.
you have 5 minutes. Do you have 5 minutes? Can I? I have accomplished so much in the hallways of Harpa, pinning down CCP Fozzie or Manifest or any of the devs. And do you have 5 minutes? Can I bend your ear for a minute? And sometimes those conversations turn into half hour, 45 minutes or more.
Yep.
Especially Master Plan is great for that. You get him started, and he'll talk your ear off. But he also knows the game very, very well, the mechanics of the game, and he is more than willing to listen to a valid and intelligent argument. Not so much he doesn't tolerate idiots very well, but if I mean the Warp Core Stab and Plex thing was a great conversation, and that went on for a while. But I mean, that is where the real action happens. That's where, and I call it advocacy. I mean, I guess there's a lot of words for it, but CSM's about protecting the game, the current, near future, and future parts of the game, making sure the players are represented, making sure, or trying to at least. I mean, we can't. CCP does a lot of stuff on their own without talking to the CSM. I understand that. I'm not blaming anybody for anything that's happened. I mean, we've had some really terrible CSMs in the past. Excuse me, but we're talking about nearly decades ago. But so I'm not pointing fingers at anybody in particular. It's just that I think there's a place for a person who has experience dealing with CCP, but also has experience being a CEO, a chief marketing officer, dealing with the higher ranks of corporations and companies the size of CCP or bigger, and that's certainly me.
Yeah, a player that can also come in with eyes wide open. One of the things that I hear about a lot is, especially since I'm seen as a bit of a white knight sometimes, is that like the CSM see how the sausage is made. And I've been a software developer for a few years, so it's like
Right.
I understand that it's disgusting, but like you probably will
Yeah.
be less shocked than
I got
some
a lot of
others
worried
might.
people there when yeah, I got a lot of very worried people when I announced who were upset because they thought that meant I was never going to play again. And
So
I
that
can
actually
assure everyone that that's not going to happen. Yeah,
that does bring me to an interesting question. You said you have a few cease and
sure.
desist orders. Um, do you have any negative relationships with CCP right now that you think would stymie your ability to be an effective CSM member?
Not any that I know of. No, all the people who I had run-ins with or a bank. And let's be clear here: the cease and desist letters were advocating for something that's actually happened now. Those were pushing CCP or the developers who were in charge of those particular issues to allow the fan base to work with CCP. So when I did a presentation at HARPA, excuse me, back in 2015, it was about fan art and
Mm,
working with fans to do merchandising and things like that. That's something that CCP actually does now.
right.
So those cease and desist letters are a badge of pride for me. Those are things that I push for and uh, that are actually in the system now. I mean, in the community at least. I'm very proud of those. We made a lot of groundwork. I started a Slack channel back in 2015 for creatives, and now um, Resorian has moved that to Discord. So there's
Yep.
a creative channel for Discord creators, and Resorian's gone on and worked for CCP and others too. But excuse me. So I'm proud of those cease and desist letters. None of those were, "Hey Rick, we hate you, Rick." Those were, "Don't. That's too soon," or "That's a bad idea right now." And the thing is that all the people who were involved with those are all gone. There's another thing that people don't realize. Eve is 18 years old, but CCP in many ways isn't. I mean, some of the top people have been there that long, but a lot of this that company turns over quite a bit.
Right. That's true.
There's fresh faces. There's new people.
Especially recently because they've been expanding, right? So even there's a whole
Right,
lot of
right,
new faces just on top of everything else.
right. I mean,
Um,
think of our community team and how they're completely different now. In the last 2 years, our community team is completely transformed. I think were you at Amsterdam when
no.
Dopamine was there? I was the first. Okay, well, that was I think a little less than 2 years ago, and Dopamine was introduced, and now the whole team's different.
Yep, that's true. And they're all for the most part all people drawn directly from the community, long
Yeah,
uh, standing members, the kind of people that
yeah,
we were
yeah. Dan
we
and
if you had announced that you were going to be CCP Yar instead of CSM candidate Rixx
right,
Javix, I probably would have believed it
right.
just as much. Uh,
Mhm.
all right,
Yeah, came very close once, but
so I do think it's important though, as we're talking about all of this like business and the real life aspects of things, that we finally circle around to
right.
what you so eloquently called the elephant in the room. And as I introduce the topic, I do want to say like this affects me personally because I also, there have been at least once where I've had a Kickstarter
Right.
and the community donated over half of the money that went to it, and it's what let me move from Tennessee back to my home. And
Yep,
for
I
a
remember that.
year, I was a professional streamer because you guys thought it was worthwhile to throw money at me, and I still can't like believe that you guys let me do it. And here we are doing it again. So full disclosure, I
Yeah,
think that if this community wants to support you, then that's good. And also full disclosure, Rixx Javix, during Rixx Javix's Kickstarter, I advocated for it, and recommended it because of the amount of work that he
Everybody
had done
did.
for free. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I wasn't alone in it, but I'm just saying, like,
No,
straight
there
up.
wasn't. Nobody did. Yep.
Yeah, I advocated for it because of how much work you had done so far. I'm like, look, man, like this isn't free for me. I'm just paying him back for the stuff that he refused to take payment for the first time when he did it. You know, and he would only
Right.
take like
Right. Right.
100 million ISK or something like that for a gosh darn photo or
Right.
logo or whatever. So okay, so all that being said, that's my side of it. You put out a blog about this. What do you want to say about it?
I think there's a misunderstanding or a miscommunication here, and I think it got a lot of things mixed up at this time that it was happening. I mean, yesterday I donated to a pilot in I think PL or somewhere who was in real life trouble. My wife and I do that all the time, but I think it got mixed up with a lot of things. There was a lot of things going on at the time with the Goon Kickstarter that had been announced in Vegas.
That's right.
Um, excuse me. Um, Allergies. It's been a very allergy season here. So I think a lot of things got mixed up. What happened was it was a very strange time in my life, and I will freely admit it. I owned a business, a very large and successful business, and closed it down. That was very catastrophic to my life. There were a lot of personal and financial reasons for doing so. It was the recession. It was 2008's recession. It was just a lot of things. I don't want to go into all the details. Again, it gets to the point where how much information about my personal life does anybody even want to know?
Well, there's a dev blog, or not dev blog, but there's a blog with all the details. But suffice it to say,
Yeah, there is. So anyway, we got to a point where one day I was actually working on Evart, and my computer blew up and melted, and it's just bad. And because things were tied up the way they were, because I was in court fighting a fight, and I think it's very important that people understand that. I've been accused of all kinds of nasty things. Not paying my child support, not paying my alimony, not taking care of my business, and none of those things are true. As a matter of fact, even before the computer had melted, I had finished. I don't think people understand that I had finished paying all the alimony. And my son lived with me. He lives a quarter of a mile away in a house with his wife. I've interviewed him on podcasts. He plays Eve and he's in Stay Frosty. He's 27 years old and married. I never paid a dime of child support. I finished paying my alimony. What messed us up was we were sued again by my ex-wife, and that was a very long 2-year court battle, and I lost it. I admit it. I mean, I fought tooth and nail. I still think it's unjust, but the law here in this state is very, very angry against men, especially men who owned a business, and all the things that went on in my life at that time. But um, I lost it. I've completely paid that. It's been over almost 2 years now that I've been completely paid, and not just paid, but I mean paid, like fines, interest on all of that. I paid a lot of money, and
so,
I think the people would be surprised how much we're talking about. But I don't want to talk about that. But and I paid a price for that. I was doxxed on Reddit. My bank account, my social security number, my wife, my new wife, we've been married for almost 12 years. Her personal information, all of that stuff was brought out on Reddit. I mean, how would you like that?
nope.
And for doing nothing wrong. I mean,
Right.
I didn't ask anybody. They've accused me of being a beggar. What I did was I tweeted. I said my computer blew up, and all of a sudden there were 3, 4, 5 people wanting to send us money. And my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, well, if they want to send us some money to get it fixed or to get a new one, that'd be great. We could use the help. We don't have a lot right now, and we can't afford it. And that turned into a tidal wave. I mean, my goodness,
Yep.
in 24 hours it was over. It took a day, and I had a new computer. That's incredible. That's the kind of community we have here in Eve Online. I don't know what the crime is about that. I don't know what the problem is. It baffles me to this day that there are people who are angry about it for some reason. I mean, I've given, my wife's given, we give all the time. I think
Yeah.
that's what community is about, right? And isn't that what charity is? And I'm even going to say this too. It means a lot to me. Every single donor, I keep a text file on my desktop, and every single donor's name is in that text file. And we have spent an incredible amount of money going to places and handing out free merch that I pay for out of my own pocket, free posters, art, like things on my wall that have been given to charity at FanFest, at Eve Vegas, at Eve North, at Eve Amsterdam. We purposely took it to heart and decided to give back double, triple what the community gave to us in our time and our effort. And when people ask, why are you running for CSM, or why do you care about this game? Because it means something. It's
Right.
important to me. It means something. These are people that I care about. I consider friends who I know. I've said this before. I could land almost anywhere in this world and know that there would be an Eve player nearby who would take me into their home and give me food and shelter. And I think that's true. And I think that's incredible. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of this community. I don't know. There are some angry people out there, and I don't know. Maybe it's a couple, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 5,000. It's one of the things that we're going to find out in this campaign is how angry are people. But
Good point.
I don't think it's very many. I think it's just a few people who are, and I think that they just misunderstand what's happened.
Historically in Eve, we found out time and time and time again that angry noise is usually created by a very, very small number of people trying to create a very large amount of noise.
You remember all the stuff going on around the Goon Kickstarter, and I fully supported that thing when it first came out. When we saw the rewards and we saw the problems that we're having, and when Scion wrote that horrible article about charlatans and how the community owed it to them and all that, the hackles on my back raised, and I think almost everybody's did. And and yeah, I changed my mind. I stood up against the Kickstarter, and I recommended that people not support it. And I'm not ashamed of that either, because I think that it was just it was an ill-conceived Kickstarter, and it didn't deserve $250,000 or whatever it was at the time. And I don't think it was right.
Yeah, but so to
that's
summarize,
the other side of it too. The other side of this too is everyone, whether you agree with me or not, you should know that I'm the type of person that's going to speak my mind, whether or not it has long-term consequences or not. I am going to speak my mind for the Eve player.
We'll find out what's going on with faction warfare one way or another if we vote Rixx in. That's for sure. No, I do. So
well, speaking about Foundation, though, I wonder how much of that is also about the new shooter that they're working on. Anyway.
That's a good question. It also there's hints that resource wars might be coming back. They're building the Stargates. There's a lot to that, which I want to go into. But
a lot going on.
Yeah. So just to summarize really quick, you were having just absolute financial ruin in your own life. Your computer melts down.
Yep.
You've been making stuff for Eve players. You've been part of the community. So you were just like, hey guys, sorry, my computer broke down. And people were like, we want to give you money. And you're like, cool, I'm going to do fine. We'll just do the thing that makes it so that people can do that. You do. It fills up within 24 hours. At that point, you stop it. You did not take any more than it took.
No.
And then,
as a matter of fact, we had a little bit of a issue, a moral dilemma. There was a tiny bit left, and I remember asking, what am I going to do with this? And so I bought it was recommended, and I did. I spent that little extra on a Wacom tablet.
Nice.
Which I still have.
Exactly.
So
and then since then you've continued to make stuff for the community, just like you promised. And
Absolutely.
It was like from our perspective, it was like, no, the spice must flow. Rixx Javix must be able to create. Like it wasn't we weren't doing you a favor. It was completely selfish. I need you to be able to make more logos, man, and I need you to be able to put hats on people and stuff. And so being able to drum up some money for a computer seemed like small pittance. I know when I had computer troubles, I had at least 2 people already trying to send me computer parts before I even described what the troubles were. So that's just the way that the community is, and it made me very frustrated to see this story about how awesome the community is get twisted with a lot of that like when you're famous in Eve, you pick up enemies, and they have these deep harbored resentments. I don't know what I said. You don't know what you said one day to make somebody mad, or you did something in some way, or you think that maybe they're a minor and you got them in low sec someday or something like that. Who knows?
And that's fine in game, as long as it's in game, right? I mean, I understand that. I have people I don't care for in game, or entities, I would say.
But some people can't manage that, and that just seems to be the nature of the beast.
Yeah, it can be difficult.
what I don't want to see is what is a showcase of how awesome our community was for an awesome member of our community twisted into some sort of weird thing. So like whatever else you feel about Rixx's yarness, I just wanted to make sure that was,
Yeah, you don't
well
have
addressed
to
and
like
talked
me.
about.
I'm not asking. I'm not actually asking people to like me. I honestly, it would be nice if everybody did, but I know that's impossible. So I'm just me. I'm old enough now. I'm experienced enough now, and I'm mature enough now that I don't seek that sort of thing. I'm not. I'm not in. People have accused me of that too. Being in this for ego or whatever. I have accomplished a lot in my life, in my career. I don't need this for an ego boost. This is about having enjoyment and being part of something that's impactful to people's lives. It's why I, support the things that I do and why I have in the past. I mean, this is not something new. This is something I've been doing since day one. So, and also it was weird. I got twisted a little bit too last when I announced that some of these things have been taken offline and things. I just want to address that real quick. Like I said, this has been over in my life for almost 2 years now, and yeah, I wrote a blog post about it, and I said there's 6 or 7 blog posts from the past that I just don't want Google looking at anymore, and they don't matter. They were very very personal, and I've always been open about sharing my personal life on my blog or on Twitter. I mean, my wife and I tweet, together. We tweet, all the time. But there's just some things that are like, there's no point for that being there anymore. It has no value. So yeah, I took it down. But I told everybody I was doing it.
Right.
And that's the thing about the other things too. I took pictures. I took a video when I was in the Apple store buying the computer. I named the computer Tweet Fleet. That's what it was named.
Yeah, you were super pumped about it. We all were.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was a new thing. Yeah.
Before I run out of my time, I want to wrap this up by saying the reason why I really wanted to dig into this is because to me, it speaks something to how important you feel the CSM is, or your desire to be on it is, because you could have just left all that in the past. You could just you could continue to be Rixx Javix, Yar Pirate, that does frigate free for alls, and nobody really brings that stuff up anymore. But
Right.
you chose to run for CSM, and the best way to get your past dredged up is to run for politics.
Oh yeah, I
So,
knew it. My wife
yeah,
and I knew it was going to happen. We had that conversation about it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't. I have
Yep.
no suspicion that you did it with naivety. What I'm saying is that shows me how important being elected is to you. Was that you're willing to drudge all that up again and go over it and say, if that's what takes me down, that's what takes me down. But if it isn't what takes me down, then I want to be able to do this. So,
I wrote a response to Scion back in the day on crossing zebras, and we worked together on that site many times. I wrote a response, and it's one of the things I'm most proud of. It's a great article. It's still available. You can read it. But in that article, I said, this community decides. It's not your decision. It's the community's decision. And if you're going to bring something up to it, and you're going to make it available to a large group of people, it's whatever their decision is the right decision. So if the community doesn't want to support your Kickstarter or your GoFundMe or your donation or your stream or your YouTube channel, if the community doesn't want to show up for the FFA in Aletta on March 6th and break a LoSec record, they're not going to. And if they do, that's a validation for you. That means you're doing something right.
right,
If they're watching your YouTube channel or watching your stream, then don't take that for granted, right? I don't take it for granted. I think it's incredible, and I think that my CSM candidacy is. I have to live by the words that I spoke all those years ago. If the community doesn't want me on the CSM, that's fine. I'll keep going with the things I'm going to do. It's not. I'm not going to resign or retire or win Eve. I'm going to keep doing the things I'm doing all the time anyway. This is what I get my enjoyment out of, and whether I'm on the CSM or not. But I think it's I really appreciate what you just said too, by the way, because that means a lot to me.
no problem, man. All right. So, unfortunately, my 50 minutes are over. So you've got 10 minutes.
That went by really fast, didn't
I
it?
know, right?
Uh, a lot of things that I would like to see too. We talked a lot about low sec and faction warfare, but I think there's also a lot of other, little things that I think we can get accomplished pretty quickly. And I always think of things in in scalability, and I think that the UI needs to be fixed. I think the UI needs to be addressed. We've seen some absolutely amazing UI, and we've all went on and voted for Project Discovery to get a Webby award, and I think that's great. That's awesome. I have two of those things myself. I think it'd be great if CCP had one, so I could still have one more than they do.
Wow.
I think that what
No. Keep going. Go on about how many
yeah,
more
yeah.
Webbies you
No,
have.
so yeah, they could catch up eventually, but I'll still have more Webbies than them. But the main UI has been relatively unchanged for a long time. I think there's a lot we could do to improve that and improve the user experience. And that's a thing that no other candidate's going to campaign on the UI improvement. Um, I think kill mails can also be improved. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for things to go in that direction. I think there's a lot of opportunity for lowsec to become something a little bit more. Let's get back to making drugs in lowsec. Let's get back to every section of space interacts with every other section of space, but I also think that they need their own flavor. They need their own uniqueness, and I think high sec needs it, and I'm not just saying low sec needs it, and low sec needs it. Everybody needs it.
Right.
Wormholes, my gosh, talk to a wormholer and let's talk about some of the changes that have happened in wormhole space. There's a lot of that needs to be addressed there too. And I think that's important. And I think, understanding all of that and then advocating for it, like we talked about, I think is very important. And I think that, you know, one of the things that always gets me is, CSM member will serve for a year, and then they'll write this article, and I've seen it a dozen times about how that first year was a learning experience and how they had to get used to things and they didn't really know how things worked and
Right.
and they think they're I got to be on the CSM again because now I know how it works. I can get a lot accomplished. I think that's a lot of wasted opportunity. I'm not going to be going into the CSM with that problem. I don't think is with all my experience of working with CCP in the past and being involved in a lot of events and things. So I hit the ground running. I hope. So I think that's also a benefit and something that sets me apart from other first time candidates. I would hope, and it would be my honor and my privilege to represent all players of Eve Online. I think it's a great game. I think it's a great community. I think 99% of it is incredible, and I would like nothing more than for more people around the world to play the darn thing. That wasn't 10 minutes, was it? I still have
No, it
time.
wasn't. But no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure to give you plenty of time, and we can chat a little bit if you want. First of all, it looks like you got plenty of support. Manic Velocity in chat says that he likes you. Some other
Hey,
people
man,
do too. Uh,
that's good. That's
it's
good.
good to
A
see.
few people like me. That'll be
Hey,
nice.
Rixx Javix. A few people like him.
Yeah.
No.
A few people. I'll use that one tomorrow. Yeah.
There
I
is.
was in Tama the other day, and a guy local said, "You're only going to get 50 votes, dude." I'm like, oh, "Okay, 50 people like me.
That
That's
goes to
pretty
the
good."
bio.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
50 people.
But
That's good.
MacX2612 asks, where can they go to get logos made? You got yourself a potential customer.
Yeah. I will say this: I am extremely busy right now, and
That's fair.
uh, not just with Eve Life, but also real world stuff too. So, yes, Discord is the best place to get a hold of me. You can email me at rixxjavix@gmail.com. You can also get me on Discord at rixxjavix number 0867. That's my Discord identity, or on Twitter at rixxjavix. I'll direct you to where you need to go. So a lot of ways to get in touch with me. I'm on all the time. So as everybody knows, you text me or DM me, and I'll get right back to you.
Yep. Uh, he's
I promise.
he makes some cool
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you. Yeah,
With Rixx. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
and go to the Eve store and buy some stuff from the Eve merch store.
There you
We're
go.
not getting a lot of orders there, so yeah, do that.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe if
ship
they
it.
put the Eve merch store somewhere visible anywhere, then it would get some traffic.
I know they don't support it, and it was nearly over a month after my stuff launched on the Eve store before they even did anything to promote it on the launcher or anything. So
Well,
yeah, it's a challenge.
so it's that meme with the guys at the gallows, and you look over and there's the world news going first time. You know, like I don't know. CCP needs to help people see their stuff, which means they need a CSM candidate to help them understand this kind of web presence stuff.
Yeah, the other side of this too is that I'm having a blast running for CSM. So I told my wife the other day, even if I only did get 50 votes, I would have the time of my life just running a campaign. I've never run for anything before, like political office or any of that. I've been a professional artist and graphic designer and everything else over the last 30 years. So I'm having a blast. I'm doing a lot of really weird stuff, putting out some odd videos. I got a new one coming out tomorrow. Did you run the one before the show started?
We did run it at the beginning, and then we'll run it one more time at the very end. Yeah, so that's what
right, cool.
I was going to say. Like, this is one of the things when you first announced your candidacy. I was like, I haven't even processed how excited I am about whether or not he could be on the CSM, but like just the idea of Rixx Javix running for CSM is so exciting because you in a very real way you have created a lot of the visual design of at least the player side of EVE Online. Not just all of the logos, but I mean all the way to previous songs or animations or ads or banners or advertisement campaigns or the 1,000+ hats.
Tournament.
How many hats did you make?
Right. Last count was over 1,200 hats. Yeah.
And before we close, let's finish off with the story about the hats because I'm all about putting EVE into context. And I think a lot of people know the Thuck You Frill Me campaign, and a lot of people know some of the other stuff, the Warp Core stabs. You're very public about that. But a lot of people never really understood the hats. So why don't you tell the story? Yeah, why don't we close up with the story about how you influenced the game by making a whole bunch of Twitter avatars?
Hats and EVE history by Rixx Javix. So I'll try to keep this as simple as possible. If you weren't around for summer of Incarna, it was quite an experience, and there was a lot of very weird things going on. CCP introduced a feature that was going to be ambulation. We were going to be able to walk around in our characters. Instead of doing that, they just gave us a captain's quarters that we could go in circles in and not open a door, and very little else, honestly. But one of the other things that they did, which kind of gets pushed under the table, is that there was just a moment there where we thought we might be getting golden ammo, where we thought that there might be vanity items that would influence gameplay, which is a no-no. Never do that again, CCP.
Yeah.
But there was famous items such as the monocle, the jeans, the designer clothes, different things. In order to mock that in a sarcastic way, I started putting hats on my character on Twitter, and silly hats, clown hats, just to make fun of the monocle, to make fun of the designer clothes, to make fun of the insane RM prices that were being paid. And this thing just took off. Everybody on Twitter wanted a hat on their avatar. It was a badge of honor in a way because it was, hey, I'm against this. CCP could look at their Twitter feed and immediately know that 95% of people opposed what they were doing because we were all in hats. And the funny part about that was that hats were impossible. I mean, all the devs said that we'd never have hats in the game because the way the hair was made and the way it was a long story. We can't have hats, and that's just ridiculous. Of course, we can have hats, and we do. We have hats. I mean, it turned into a thing. After Incarna, it just became a badge of honor for people in Tweet Fleet to ask for a hat. I actually started taking time. That was right around the time we got full-size avatar images too. So yep. I actually started taking time doing them and got really good at finding hats to use. People started asking for specific hats on their characters. It became a thing, and it went on for years. And every once in a while now, I'll get somebody new who discovers it and who will email me and ask for a hat on their avatar.
If I remember correctly, when they finally did come out with hats in game, though, you claimed victory for that, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course. Yeah. They said it was impossible. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So that's what really stopped the massive. How many hats did you make altogether? I think you made me at least 3.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I have they're on the blog. If you want to go, there's a link for most of them. I stopped updating it after a while because it just got ridiculous. But yeah, there's a lot of a lot of hats. And then for a short time it was frills. If you remember, we
Yes.
were when the vagabond got his wings clipped. I started putting Elizabethan frills around people's necks. That was kind of funny too. And even some devs asked for those.
Yeah, that was the "Thuck
Yeah,
You Frill Me" campaign, which is by far
yeah. Bring back.
the best named thing in the history of things being named. I think. Uh,
That's awesome. Yeah.
all
Yeah,
right.
we had a
Well,
lot of fun. And again, well, I mean, a lot of this is just for having fun, right? I mean, it's about entertainment and engagement, right? I mean, it's just having fun. It entertains me. If it entertains me, hopefully it entertains the community too. And then every once in a while, it makes change happen. So it's kind of
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's again. I think that the thing that I find most interesting about all of this is the guy who has already accomplished so much in the game, and also has so much personal life that will obviously be dredged up in such a process, yet still finds value enough in the CSM that they want to put their energy into running for it and possibly being on it because you know more than a lot of people how much work being on the CSM, like you're not just committing to this campaign run. I mean, like getting elected is only the beginning and it's not really a paid job. So um,
No,
I
no.
find it, I think that that's the thing that is most noteworthy about your candidacy is that in spite of everything else, it's almost like an affirmation for the CSM as an institution. You believe in the CSM that much. You believe in what you could do as the CSM, or at least you want to get on the inside so that way you can see for yourself what it is and
Yeah.
maybe let us
Well, I
know.
think too that Ash, as you know, when it started, there were a lot of problems, and it evolved over time. When it first started, I was guilty as anybody of calling it a student council, of mocking it or making fun of it. But over the years, the CSM has changed, the mandate has changed, CCP has changed, and
Right.
the people who are getting elected have changed, and I've known so many of those people, and those people have become my friends. Meeksy, I can go down a list. Just people who are on like CSM3, CSM6, are friends of mine now. And I understand it better. And I understand the history and what has evolved. So no, I mean, back in the day, I probably would have scoffed at the idea, but over time, and and now knowing and having experienced for myself the power of this community, not just for me, but also in other people's lives, other people who have been affected, the stories that you hear, the suicides that have been stopped, the people whose lives have been changed by a game, and now we're having these articles where what did you learn and what did you turn it into your professional career. My son was 14 when he started playing. He's 27 now, and he's married. His life has been playing Eve, and I know people like that who were young when they started, who are living lives now and are adults, and that's incredible.
Yeah, it's I am often taken aback by how important I feel Eve Online is, and that's one of those things that often we don't like. One of those words that we don't really talk about. But I think that Eve allows us to explore ourselves and explore, um, explore ourselves both on a big, like macro and micro scale. And that's why it's
Yes.
useful for people to be able to do things like become businessmen, and sociologists will study it, and economists will study it, and we can criticize pieces here or there. But I think that honestly, Eve Online is important in some
Yes,
significant way.
absolutely.
And we
Well, one
as
of the things that
players not
happened
only get,
too.
sorry,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that
No,
we as
go ahead.
players not only get to enjoy that fact, but in my opinion, have a certain responsibility to that. We are the conductors of this. We're the
Yes.
participants. We're the people making this sand sculpture that everyone else gets to look at.
If you don't mind, if another minute, I one of the things that really impacted me and changed, possibly, drove me to do it is back in January or February. I don't remember exactly when. I had a very long. phone conversation, probably an hour, hour and a half, with a reporter from Wired magazine, and the article that she's working on hasn't come out yet, but she told me she'd send me a link when it does. But the conversation was about the lockdown, about about all the trouble and the trauma and the stress that the last year has had, and the impact that video games can have on well-being and engagement and personal growth and all the things that people were experiencing that were horrible, and how video games, about staying home and playing and being engaged in the community. And it really brought to light, just how, I mean, it's possible if you want to play Eve as just a video game and really brush it off and never think about it in your real life. That's possible. You can do it. I think if you get involved at all with the players, with the people around you in your corporation or alliance, you're going to want to know more about them, and it creates circles of friends that you can trust, people that you can talk to, people that you can reach out to. Even in the darkest times of my divorce and my personal life, when I was feeling down, there was always somebody to talk to on Discord, on Slack at the time,
Right.
on Twitter. There was, and I say that to people now: is you're having a hard time, just call, reach out. I mean, I even share my cell phone now. I mean, my personal life and my Eve life are the same at this point. I
Might
don't
as
care.
well.
Yeah, we've had 4 Eve meets at our home. We've had up to 45 people here at once. We would have another one if it wasn't for the lockdown,
Right.
and we can't wait to invite players back to our home. So we don't just talk. I'm not talking about this. I'm living it.
Well, I got my
This
second
is
dose this weekend, so
nice,
I'll
nice.
be on my
Any
way.
any bad things?
Nah, not so far.
Oh, good,
All
good,
right,
good,
so I think
excellent.
that I mean, like we've gone a little bit extra, but we've also just waxed poetic kind of in general, and I'm also kind of tap dancing because I was hoping that Talking to Stations would go live, but they haven't gone live yet. So,
Uh, yeah,
but
I don't think a lot of this a lot of that last 10 15 minutes probably didn't have much to do with CSM
yeah, yeah,
games
yeah.
as
So that's
much
fine.
as
That's just extra stuff for the 2 or 3 people that make it to the end of the YouTube video. Oh, they're live
right.
now.
Thanks
Awesome, awesome.
everybody.
Okay, so then we will
Okay,
be
cool.
rating over there. I just want to say to wrap it up with the so sorry to wrap up the interview portion. Thank you all, or thank you, Rixx Javix, for coming and doing this interview
You're
in a
welcome.
very real way. I'm very excited to see the continuation of your candidacy. I hope that you do lots of exciting things in order to get our attention, and I hope that you get elected, man. Good luck.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
The voting details, I should probably put the voting details in the description in all the YouTube videos, but if you look up the CSM 16 rules, that dev blog will have all of that rules. To everybody else who watched, thank you very much. And until next time, we'll see you in space.
Fly safe.
All right. Oh, and boom. Oh, nope, that's the wrong one. Where is... Really? Oh, okay. There we go. That was that. All right. Whew. All right. So that was it for today. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the raids, Contempo Enterprise. Thank you so much for that. I hope you got a shout out. And thanks for hanging out. Hope your stream was really good. And also Nth Dimensional, of course. One of the really promising upcoming streamers that I've been enjoying hanging out with a lot. Rated me as well. If you have not checked out both of their streams, make sure to pick them up. And of course, Grendel, you're just the man, dude. I don't know what else to say. On top of that, I have been Ashtarothi. I think so. Tomorrow I will be on, and I'll be talking with at least. I have an interview scheduled with Maldavius, which will be very exciting for CSM interview. And also we're going to do a follow-up about Poshfin, but we also may be talking about if we know anything more about this more accessibility to Poshfin thing or the upcoming changes in the expansion. So we will almost certainly have more to talk about tomorrow, and I will see you then. 07. I'm going to conclude with his video.